View is known for fiery debates, but no one expected Mr. Bean himself to take on Joy Behar with such sharp precision. When Rowan Atkinson appeared on the show to discuss whether telemedicine is better or worse for seniors, the atmosphere was light until Joy dismissed telemedicine as a fancy video call for people too lazy to visit a real doctor. That's when Rowan, known for his calm wit, leaned forward and said, "Or perhaps it's a lifeline for people who can't drive, can't stand in line, and can't afford to get sick waiting for a bus." The audience fell silent. What began as a polite conversation turned into one of the most surprising and emotional moments in daytime TV. By the time Rowan stood up and quietly left the set, Joy was left stunned, the audience torn between applause and disbelief. It wasn't comedy, it was conviction. You may think it's just convenience, but for some people, it's survival.
The morning air on The View buzzed with a kind of nervous energy that even the producers could feel behind the cameras. Rowan Atkinson, known worldwide for his silent comedy and sharp intellect, sat quietly in his seat, hands folded, waiting for the first question. Joy Behar, ever the provocateur, smiled as she leaned toward him. "Rowan," she began, her tone playful but edged, "you've been vocal about supporting telemedicine for seniors, but do you really think replacing real doctor visits with screen time is the right way to care for older people?" Rowan tilted his head slightly, his face composed but his eyes alert. "I don't see it as replacement. I see it as extension. Technology should make care more reachable, not colder. For many seniors, telemedicine isn't about avoiding the hospital. It's about surviving long enough to get help." Joy chuckled. "But aren't we babying people a bit? I mean, part of staying healthy is getting out of the house, moving around, seeing real faces. You can't diagnose loneliness over a webcam." The audience laughed lightly, siding with Joy's humor, but Rowan didn't flinch. "You're right," he said, nodding. "But you also can't fix a broken hip if you can't afford a taxi to the clinic. My point is simple. If we're going to talk about compassion, let's make sure it includes accessibility." Sonny Hostin leaned in, intrigued. "Rowan, have you had any personal experience with this? You sound quite passionate." Rowan gave a small smile, the kind that hides a deeper truth. "My mother lived in the countryside for years. In her final months, she couldn't walk to the bus stop, and the local GP visited less and less. Telemedicine allowed her to speak with specialists hundreds of miles away. It gave her dignity when the world around her made her feel forgotten." The studio grew quieter. Even Joy paused for a moment, her expression softening, before she quickly recovered. "That's a moving story, but it doesn't change the fact that tech companies profit from keeping people glued to their screens. Isn't this just another way for them to make money off people's fears?" Rowan's expression shifted slightly. "That's a fair concern, but fear isn't in the screen. It's in being ignored. The question isn't whether technology is perfect, it's whether we're willing to use it wisely. If you lived alone in a rural town and your blood pressure monitor sent your doctor a warning that saved your life, would you still call that greed?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Joy's smile faltered for the first time. He continued, calmly but with growing intensity. "Technology is only as cold as the people who control it. We can choose to make it a barrier or a bridge. Seniors deserve bridges." The studio audience applauded softly, sensing that this wasn't going to be a typical View segment. Joy leaned back, regrouping. "Rowan, I think you're oversimplifying. Not every senior can handle all this technology. Some of them don't even know how to turn on a tablet, let alone schedule an appointment on one. Rowan nodded. Then that's not a reason to take the tool away. It's a reason to teach them. You don't abandon someone because they don't understand a device. You guide them through it. We've spent decades teaching them to adapt to our world. Maybe it's time we adapt to theirs. That line hit home. A few audience members even clapped. Sunny gave Rowan an approving nod. But Joy wasn't done. "You make it sound so easy," she said with a smirk. "But life isn't a movie, Rowan. Not every problem is solved with a clever speech or a Zoom call." Rowan chuckled quietly, his tone still measured. "No, Joy, it isn't. But sometimes a small screen can give someone hope when the real world won't pick up the phone." The audience applauded stronger this time, a mix of empathy and respect. The spark had been lit. What started as a polite discussion about policy was turning into something far more human, a debate about dignity, compassion, and what it truly means to care. The camera panned across the table. Joy leaned forward again, visibly ready to challenge him further. Rowan's jaw tightened ever so slightly. You could sense it. The conversation was about to shift from thoughtful to fiery. The applause faded, but the tension stayed thick in the air. Joy Behar adjusted her glasses, her trademark half-smile returning as she leaned in closer. "You make it sound poetic, Rowan," she said, her tone sharpening. "But not every senior wants to stare at a screen and talk to some doctor who's probably multitasking between 10 patients. Isn't there something cold about that? Something robotic?" Rowan folded his hands. "What's cold, Joy, is leaving someone to fend for themselves because the system can't reach them. You talk about connection, but connection isn't about geography. It's about effort." Joy raised a brow. "Effort? You mean effort like learning how to download an app when you're 85 and your eyesight's failing?" The audience laughed, but Rowan didn't. "If we can train people to file taxes online, vote online, even attend therapy online, then we can certainly teach them to manage a telehealth appointment. You underestimate them." Sonny Hostin nodded slightly, trying to mediate. "I actually see both sides. Joy's right that older people can struggle with new tech, but Rowan has a point. Telemedicine keeps people from falling through the cracks." Joy rolled her eyes. "Sure, but at what cost, Sonny? Once you make everything digital, you take away choice. You're telling Grandma she has to see her doctor through a camera because in-person visits are too expensive or understaffed. That's not compassion. That's convenience disguised as care." Rowan's expression hardened, his British restraint cracking just a bit. Convenience for whom? For hospitals that can't afford staff, or for families who can't afford constant travel? You talk about choice, but most seniors don't have one. Telemedicine gives them a chance to be heard. The audience hummed with mixed reactions, half nodding, half murmuring disagreement. Joy leaned back, folding her arms. "You've made a career out of satire, Rowan. Don't you see the irony here? The same technology that isolates people is now being sold to them as connection. It's like curing loneliness with a Wi-Fi signal." That line got a few laughs, but Rowan didn't return the humor. "It's not a cure for loneliness, it's a lifeline. I'd rather an elderly woman talk to a doctor through a screen than sit at home waiting for a phone that never rings." Joy tilted her head. "And what happens when that lifeline breaks? When the internet cuts out or the software glitches or their information gets hacked? You think seniors can fight identity theft?" Rowan sighed, a flicker of frustration finally surfacing. "There are risks in everything, Joy. Cars crash, yet we still drive. Planes fall, yet we still fly. We can't stop progress because it isn't perfect. We improve it." "Improve it for whom?" Joy shot back. "For tech companies who profit off our parents and grandparents? The same companies that sell their data to advertisers?" The crowd reacted with a low murmur. Even Whoopi, sitting nearby, lifted a brow as the tension climbed. Rowan leaned forward now, his tone steady but firm.
You're focusing on the wrong villains, Joy. The problem isn't technology, it's the people misusing it. If we regulate properly and teach responsibly, telemedicine can change lives. I've seen it do so. You can't deny progress because you don't trust people to use it right. Joy smirked. I don't deny progress, I just question blind faith in it. You're an optimist, Rowan. I'm a realist. He met her gaze without blinking, and I think realism without empathy becomes cynicism. That landed. The audience gasped softly, and a few clapped before Joy raised her voice again. Oh, come on, you can't just guilt people into trusting technology. Seniors don't need screens, they need people. They need both, Rowan countered, his accent cutting through the rising noise. They need compassion and convenience. Technology can carry both if we choose to use it that way. The two of them were leaning in now, the rest of the hosts watching like referees unsure whether to step in. Joy tapped the table. You keep saying we choose, but who is we, Rowan? The government? The hospitals? The Silicon Valley billionaires? Because I don't see them caring about some 78-year-old woman trying to connect her blood pressure monitor. Rowan's voice dropped lower, more personal. Then maybe it's up to people like us, those with platforms, to make sure they do. A heavy pause filled the studio. The tone had shifted again. This wasn't just a debate about telemedicine anymore. It had become a reflection of how society treats the vulnerable. Joy gave a tight smile, clearly unwilling to back down. That's a nice speech, but speeches don't fix systems. Rowan leaned back slowly, his eyes steady on her. No, he said, but speeches start conversations, and sometimes that's the first medicine anyone gets. The audience erupted in applause. Even Whoopi looked impressed, but the tension at the table was undeniable. Joy's jaw tightened. The warmth of the show was gone now. What was left was pride, principle, and a deep divide. The debate wasn't cooling down. It was just getting started.
By this point, the air in the studio had turned thick. The smiles were gone. Even Whoopi and Sunny had gone quiet, letting the debate run its course. It wasn't entertainment anymore. It was personal. Joy Behar leaned forward again, her voice clipped but calm. Rowan, you keep romanticizing this whole thing. You sound like one of those tech CEOs pitching a new app, not a man who understands what real connection means. You think talking to a doctor on a laptop is care? My mother used to hold her doctor's hand when she got bad news. How do you replace that? Rowan didn't flinch. You don't replace it, Joy. You adapt it. You create new ways to care when old ways fail. Because pretending that everyone still has access to that kind of world, it's cruel. Joy gave a half laugh, the kind that comes more from disbelief than amusement. Cruel? What's cruel is telling seniors that talking to a screen is the same as being seen. There was a murmur from the crowd. Some clapped lightly, others shook their heads. Rowan's patience was visibly thinning. You talk about compassion, Joy, but you're ignoring the truth. A lot of these seniors you're defending live miles away from hospitals. Some can't drive. Some are in wheelchairs. Are you suggesting we just wait until the system magically builds enough clinics for them? Joy shot back, I'm saying the government should invest in better healthcare access, not outsource it to Wi-Fi connections. Rowan's tone sharpened. And how long will that take? Another decade? 2? People don't live forever, Joy. Telemedicine isn't a replacement for human care. It's a bridge until the world catches up. That struck a nerve. Joy's face softened for a moment, then hardened again. You really think these people can just hop online and make it work? Some of them don't even know how to use a smartphone, let alone navigate a telehealth portal. Rowan's voice rose slightly for the first time. Then teach them. Stop treating seniors like they're fragile antiques. My mother learned to email in her 70s. My neighbor learned online grocery shopping at 80. You'd be surprised what people can do when you stop assuming they can't. The audience applauded, and for a second, even Joy seemed caught off guard by his conviction. Sonny Hostin spoke up softly, trying to cool things down. Rowan, you're right that telemedicine helps people reach doctors they wouldn't otherwise see. But Joy's point is about trust. Many older Americans don't trust virtual care. They worry their concerns won't be taken seriously if they're not in the room. Rowan nodded, still composed. That's fair. But that's not a failure of the technology. It's a failure of communication. We need to show seniors that being heard through a screen can be just as powerful as being heard in person. Joy wasn't done. You're ignoring the human touch, the eye contact, the comfort. Machines can't give that. You can't measure blood pressure through empathy, Rowan. Maybe not, but empathy is the one thing machines can't replace. That's up to the humans who use them, the doctors, the families, the system. Telemedicine doesn't take away compassion, it exposes how little of it we're willing to give. The room went quiet. That landed heavier than either of them expected. Joy's voice softened slightly, almost hesitant now. You make it sound like I'm heartless. That's not fair. I care deeply about seniors. I just don't want them to be left behind. Rowan's tone shifted, calmer now, but resolute. Then don't hold them back by keeping them in the past. Help them move forward with us. Change is hard, Joy, but so is being left out of the world. Joy exhaled, folding her arms again. And what about privacy? What about data leaks? Seniors are already targets for scams. You're telling me putting their medical records online is safe? Rowan's expression darkened. Nothing is ever completely safe, but neither is driving to a hospital in a snowstorm. We don't stop doing what saves lives because we fear what might go wrong. A few people in the audience clapped again, more boldly this time. Joy's jaw tightened. So that's it then? You're okay with trading human care for convenience so long as it's efficient? Rowan's voice lowered. No, Joy. I'm saying we need both. Efficiency without empathy is empty, but empathy without access is useless. There was silence. Even the co-hosts didn't jump in. The contrast between Joy's defensiveness and Rowan's conviction had created something rare on the view. Genuine reflection. Finally, Joy said quietly, You really believe this, don't you? Rowan nodded once. I do. Because I've seen what happens when people are ignored. And if a camera and a microphone can make someone feel seen again, then yes, I'll defend that. The audience applauded, but the energy wasn't celebratory. It was emotional. The debate had gone beyond technology now. It was about dignity. And somewhere in that silence, the tension between two worldviews, fear of the future and faith in progress, stood perfectly still, waiting to see which one would crack first.
The studio had gone still again. You could feel the tension radiating between Joy and Rowan like static in the air. The polite smiles were long gone. Joy adjusted her glasses, trying to keep her tone steady but biting. You talk a good game, Rowan, but you're missing something important. Compassion can't be scheduled through an app. Medicine isn't supposed to feel like customer service. Rowan's voice came low, deliberate. And yet, that's exactly what it feels like when hospitals make people wait 6 months for an appointment. You can't tell someone with chest pain to wait because empathy takes time. Joy blinked, thrown off by his directness. That's not fair, she said sharply. Doctors are overwhelmed. The system's broken. But the answer isn't to stick a camera in front of a 75-year-old woman and call it care. Rowan leaned forward,
his tone cutting through the noise. No, the answer is to stop acting like innovation and compassion can't coexist. They can, but it requires people willing to adapt, not people sitting on TV mocking progress. The audience gasped softly. Joy's lips parted in shock. "Excuse me?" Rowan didn't back down. "You're mocking a solution you don't understand. And that's dangerous, Joy, because there are people out there listening to you, people who might give up on getting help because they think it's not real care unless they can shake someone's hand." Joy's jaw tightened. "You think I'm dangerous because I want real doctors instead of screens?" "I think you're dangerous when your nostalgia gets in the way of saving lives," Rowan shot back. His voice wasn't raised, but the quietness made it sharper. The audience studio erupted, half applauding, half booing. Whoopi tried to intervene. All right, let's take a breather." But neither of them was listening now. Joy turned toward him, frustration breaking through her composure. "You're twisting my words, Rowan. I'm not against technology. I'm against replacing people with it. You can't automate care. You can't algorithm compassion." Rowan nodded slowly. "Then maybe compassion means giving people the tools they need to survive. If that tool is a screen, then so be it. Because doing nothing while we wait for the perfect system isn't compassion. It's comfort for the privileged." The crowd murmured in agreement. You could see Whoopi shift in her seat, her expression tightening. Joy's tone hardened. "You sound like a tech spokesperson. You really think these billion-dollar companies care about seniors? About anyone? They just want more users, more data. It's all about profit." Rowan tilted his head slightly, a faint, ironic smile appearing. "And yet, those same companies built platforms that now connect veterans to therapists and rural patients to specialists. You can hate the system all you want, Joy, but don't ignore the lives it saved." Joy shot back instantly. "And what about the lives it hurt? Seniors getting scammed, data stolen, families tricked into fake calls from Medicare. You think that's progress?" Rowan sighed, his voice now tinged with something almost weary. "There will always be risk, but teaching people to fear every new tool just leaves them powerless. You can't stop the future by yelling at it." That line landed like a slap. The room went completely silent. Joy's tone turned sharp, defensive. "So what, we just hand our grandmothers an iPad and call it equality? That's your big idea?" Rowan's voice softened, but his gaze didn't waver. "No, we hold their hand while they learn. We teach them to trust themselves again. Because the real danger isn't technology, Joy. It's hopelessness. It's making them believe they're too old to belong in the world anymore." The applause this time was louder, stronger. People stood up. Joy looked around the audience, clearly rattled. "So you're saying I'm the problem? That because I care about real connection, I'm keeping people in the past?" Rowan stood up slightly in his chair, his tone calm but final. "I'm saying you're mistaking comfort for compassion, and that's how societies fall behind." That was it, the moment everything broke. Joy's expression froze. You could see she didn't know whether to fight back or let it go. But Rowan's calmness made it worse. It made her feel cornered. She leaned back, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. "You know, for someone who built a career pretending to be clueless, you sure sound self-righteous today." Rowan exhaled slowly, his face unreadable. Then he rose from his seat. "And for someone who claims to speak for people, you sure don't like listening to them." The crowd erupted again. Half gasps, half claps. Joy's cheeks flushed red as Rowan calmly adjusted his jacket. He looked toward Whoopi, then back at Joy. "I came here to talk about empathy, not ego." And with that, he walked off the set. Joy sat in stunned silence as the camera panned to Whoopi, who looked toward the audience with a quiet sigh. "Well, that escalated fast." The credits were still a few minutes away, but everyone knew the moment had already gone viral.
The next morning, the internet was on fire. Clips of Rowan Atkinson walking off The View spread everywhere, on YouTube, TikTok, even late-night talk shows.
The headlines read like battle cries. Rowan Atkinson schools Joy Behar on empathy versus ego. Tech meets tradition, the debate that split America. On one side, people praised Rowan for defending progress with grace. On the other, Joy's supporters rallied behind her, saying she stood for authenticity and real human touch. The clash had struck a nerve that went far beyond the studio walls. It was about how people felt being left behind in a world that wouldn't slow down. By mid-afternoon, a clip surfaced from Rowan's team. He was sitting outdoors, dressed simply, no makeup, no stage lights. He spoke directly to the camera. "I didn't walk out because I was angry," he said. "I walked out because empathy can't be argued into existence. It has to be lived. Whether you show it through a conversation, a screen, or a smile, it's the same emotion. Technology doesn't kill humanity. Fear does." The video went viral instantly. Seniors, doctors, nurses, even teachers shared it with comments like, "Finally, someone gets it," and "This man just spoke for every person trying to catch up with the world." Meanwhile, Joy opened The View the next day with a noticeably different tone. "Yesterday got heated," she said, glancing at the audience. "And while I still believe face-to-face care matters, I also see that fear shouldn't guide progress. Maybe there's a middle ground after all." Whoopi smiled faintly beside her. "That's what good conversations do. They get messy before they get meaningful." Back in London, Rowan stayed quiet for a few days, declining interviews. But one photo made the rounds. Him sitting in a small cafe, helping an elderly woman set up a tablet. No cameras, no speeches, just the same quiet empathy he'd defended on live TV. For many, that image said more than the debate ever could. It became a symbol of what people had been missing, not just connection, but understanding. A reminder that change doesn't have to erase what came before. It just needs space to grow beside it. A week later, The View aired a follow-up episode about technology and aging gracefully. This time, experts from both sides joined, and the tone was calmer, more reflective. Even Joy referenced Rowan's words, calling them a needed mirror for all of us. In the end, what could have been just another viral TV argument became something entirely else, a national reflection. People started talking again, not shouting. Families helped their elders set up telehealth apps. Doctors and nurses joined the discussion online. For once, a debate on television had actually changed something. And though Rowan never returned to the show, his walkout became part of its legacy, a moment that forced everyone, even its hosts, to question what empathy really means in a modern world. Because maybe that's the point Rowan was making all along. Empathy isn't about keeping things the same. It's about evolving without forgetting who we are.